hearty congratulations to all the three organizations for the trilogue that we have been having for the last 2 days. Now, this is really a pioneering step which need to be operationalized and carried forward. We know that anthropology used to be a compulsory subject at the ICS examination. Of course, for different reason. The reason is different. Next year, sir, there is going to be a centenary year of the anthropology teaching in India at Calcutta. And anthropologists are looking forward to celebrate it, and they have yet to decide as to how to go about it, but it's an important issue. Actually, in October 2, 1952, a massive rural reconstruction program of community development, as we know, was introduced in India of rural transformation. And initially, the American and the Indian anthropologists were the consultants in this community development program for propagating the extension approach. Now we allowed the economists to take over us later in the Planning Commission. You have to introspect as to why it happened. The Indian Council of Social Science Research, which was established quite late by V.K.R.V. Rao and D.R. Gadge, in its very first review in 1965, after 3 years, the anthropology panel recommended poverty issues as priority research area. Now we anthropologists have to think as to whether what we have done about it. Is poverty only an economic issue, or is poverty your agenda? Because the tribal communities are the poorest of the poor, and why it is so, that also is a matter of our subject study. Now the government report itself, the tribal states, the tribal district, the tribal taluks, they are the lowest in Human Development Index according to the government human development reports, despite tribal subplan. Now this is something, when despite we have a single window tribal development department following the Nehru's Panchashil. Now we have to understand as to why it is so. Whose research baby is that to understand all these things. So what kind of studies are required and how to use these findings in policy formulation and implementation. Without such studies, we are branded as colonial anthropologists, despite the discipline being people-centric. Sir, you mentioned about the governors. Happily, I may tell you that Maharashtra governor is one who has issued orders right from Raj Bhavan to give 5% of the TSP funds to Gram Sabhas under PESA. But now we have to see as to what is happening to it, because there is so much confusion about revenue village, Gram Panchayat, Gram Panchayat, Gram Sabha. And then the ITDP area and the revenue area, they don't match with each other. So that kind of confusion creates, lots of issues which we have to study. We cannot just say, that is also part of our study, that ethnography of tribal administration is required, not the anthropology of people only. Now, unfortunately, the Maharashtra government has to make trips to Chennai of late, but then he still finds time to meet us and discuss the tribal issues with us. Now, anthropology as a holistic discipline, holistic study of mankind, cannot study only the ethnography of culture. What about the focused ethnography of tribal administration, tribal political system, what we call now stakeholders? So our whole has to, our concept of whole, holistic thing, has to include the stakeholders also, not just people's culture. So that is very important. Now we have the people's sector and we have the government sector. The private sector is missing in tribal area. Whatever private sector has been there, it has been exploitative. And so the government sector is quite powerful, and they are trying to see that the tribals are not exploited. But then who will bridge the gap between the people sector and the public sector, the government sector? In areas of health, in areas of education, in areas of livelihood. Anthropologists who are considered as experts on tribal issues, is it not their agenda to try to bridge these two sectors together through their studies, through training, through research and all that? We have been talking about value neutrality. Value neutrality means potential support of establishment. And value neutrality was not there even in the West. One of the pioneer anthropologists, Kalakon, was an advisor to General MacArthur in Japan. What kind of value neutrality? Of course, he gave advice not to forcibly abdicate Hirohito, Emperor Hirohito, otherwise it would create problem. And that was listened to. But what I'm saying that, let us not talk about value neutrality, because this fence sitting on our part is violating the human rights and universal values of the United Nations and the Constitution of India. You know that the draft of the United Nations Charter of Human Rights was written by Herskovits, an anthropologist. And the universal values are there. So in the name of universal values, we should really intervene, and in the name of our Constitution and as our responsibility as citizens of India with our fundamental duty, we should intervene, we should have intervention, not just intervention research. Now, anthropology is a people-friendly discipline and enjoying the academic autonomy in our universities has to be partners in development with the public and voluntary sector. I'm saying this because this is what we have tried to do for the last 2 days, and it has to be carried forward. Our methodological strengths in understanding emic perspectives and micro issues, in understanding the process of change, has to be used. We are very good at that, although we may not be good at putting the statistics, to translate it into budget and finance and all that kind of thing. So partnership has to be operationalized by way of joint research and by way of intervention. And we had a very good example, as I have just given some slides to our chief guest. We had a big project with Tribal Development Department on tribal malnutrition as a result of suo motu injunction from the Bombay High Court between me and Dr. Arode. And a mega project, 10 crores, where we are actually feeding 2,000 pregnant women every day and 10,000 children with supplementary food and other kinds of things. And the partnership was actually operationalized by having joint committees at the ITDP level, at the commissioner level, and at the ministry, that is secretary level, where the government was the chairperson and we were the secretary. So there was no confrontation between we and the government, because in the committee we would sit, discuss, and then it would be minuted, and unless it is signed by the secretary and chairman both, naturally it could not be operationalized. So this partnership is very much important. Although it was not an intervention research project, it was an intervention project. But then based on our anthropological approach of comprehensive approach and sustainable approach and methodology and all that kind of thing. So this is possible. Another thing, as I have given you, so Ayush in public health. We are supported by the Ministry of Ayush to work in 4 states, in Himachal Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, to find the ground level situation and then to suggest as to what should be done further. So these are all the issues where anthropologists can really play a role, and we have the experience of that. In the UGC document, sir, about which some mention was made, when we made the ideal model curriculum, we have written that we are not satisfied with anthropology in India. We should go for Indian anthropology. And we should go in that direction. Thank you so much.